Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Real Talk for Real Teens, hosted by Kim Creighton, or as she's known by the people who know her best, Mama C. The show where we uniquely combine the information teens need with the entertainment teens want.
Hey guys, welcome back to another riveting episode of Real Talk for Real Teens. You know, I embellished there. And this is the first of many topics. We're going to talk about college, getting college ready, college prep 2.0. But let me first tell you who my musical artist is this week. It is Jared and Amber. It is a really cute musical couple who just welcomed into the world a set of twins. So we're going to be listening to Jared and Amber's music tonight. And our guest tonight is Dr. Drew Appleby. Dr. Appleby has 40 years of experience working with colleges and their students, and he is the author of an article I read recently, 10 Things That Every Freshman Needs to Know About College. And I just knew I had to have him on the show. So welcome, Dr. Appleby.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I understand you're called Mama C. My students call me Dr. A, so Mama C.
All right,
good to be on your show.
Welcome. As I said, guys, you know I've been really. The show is about preparing you for that transition from adolescence to adulthood, whatever that is. And I've really been hitting on. I've been really with this show getting my eyes open to just the process and how ill-prepared, unprepared you are, and it's no fault of your own. We as adults just haven't done the best job we can to prepare you. So I'm happy that Dr. Appleby is on the show. So let's just jump right in and let's have a conversation. So what would you like to start with, Dr. Appleby?
Well, I think the best place to start is just maybe a teeny bit of what my passion is all about. And during the 4 decades that I was a college professor, I was a professor of psychology. The thing that I was most concerned about, and I think worked the hardest to help students with, was making transitions from one level of their life or stage of their life to the next. So, for example, from high school to college, and from college to the workforce, or college to graduate school. And no one really seems to be doing a lot of introducing students to those next stages.
Exactly.
High schools seem to be very interested in making sure that their students graduate and get into college, but I don't see that they have been doing a great deal to really help their students to understand that their freshman year in college, for example, is not going to be 13th grade.
And I like that. I like that little that is so. When I saw that, I was like, that's exactly it, because they go away to college and they think it's going to be an extension of high school. And so the fact that you are, when I saw your stuff and you put 13th grade, I was like, that says it right there.
Yeah, it really does. And I played a lot of roles during my career, but I think the one that I have enjoyed and developed best during the latter part of my career is that I've actually become what I like to call an academic travel agent. And if you were going to a foreign country and you didn't know anything about what the foreign country, what the culture was and what the habits were of the people there, it would be a good idea to hire a travel agent, so that if, for example, you went to England, you would be aware of the fact that they drive on the other side of the road. Because if you didn't know that, the first time you would encounter an Englishman on the road, you'd crash. And that's what a lot of freshmen do when they come from high school, who they're used to being taught by high school teachers, and then they come to college, and all of a sudden they're being taught by college professors, and those are two very different kinds of animals. High school teachers, I mean, they have been taught to teach, and they teach the whole day. And college professors, on the other hand, interestingly enough, a lot of us really haven't been taught to teach. we have been taught our content, and it's assumed that we'll know how to teach that. But the two different kind of teaching, the two methods of teaching are really sometimes quite different. In college,
exactly. High school is that very nurturing. You know, everybody makes sure everybody gets it. You know, what do you need help?
Right.
College is just like the real world. This is how I'm giving it. You better figure out a way to catch it.
Yeah. College professors are. It's not that they are not teachers, but what they do is they simply present students with an opportunity to learn. But it's up to the students to do that, which is really just part of the kind of the introduction to the adult world.
Exactly.
Comes in college.
Exactly.
And that's where a lot of students really aren't quite ready for that. They have been kind of babied to a certain extent in the high school class.
Not kind of. They have been babied. I mean, I tell them all the time, you know, just walking in the hall, you could be walking in the hall with your lunch, and they'll stop you in the hall. I'm like, you know what? A college professor would tell you, I have office hours. Don't talk to me. This is my time. And they get offended. But you know what? This is what the real world is like. You're not just going to stop people on the street or whatever and have a conversation if they're not welcome to it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Tell you or remind you to get your homework in, or you know, did you do this and did you do that? That's just not how it is. And I've been telling it, and especially with Common Core, with the mandate being college and career ready. We need to define what is college and career ready, because to get them into college is one thing. Can they stay in college? Because so many freshmen just come right back home. Yes.
Yeah. Let me give you a really scary statistic. According to the most recent data from American college testing, 33.5% of all college freshmen don't make it to their sophomore year.
Exactly.
I mean, we lose a third of of our bright, motivated students because they haven't been given the basic training which would allow them to succeed in the intellectual combat, that takes place at the college level. I mean, not that we fight, but it's a whole different ballgame.
And there's a big misconception and a big just falsehood for parents and students alike who believe just because my kid is getting A's and B's in school, they can master college. That is not about, college is not just about academics. And so, and it's particularly in this testing environment where students are taught to the test. That's not how college is. So just because your kid can get a 3 on an AP exam, that doesn't mean they know anything about that subject. They know about how to take that AP exam.
That's true. Yeah, well, what I've done, I had a class that I taught for about the last 20 years of my career, which was called it was a freshman experience class, where I taught a group of usually about 25 freshmen just how to survive and thrive in college. And I had one group about 2 years before I retired, who I got to see their incoming credentials, their grades, and their SAT and ACT scores, and I was just blown away. This was a class of really, really bright students, and I thought to myself, "Good heavens, they won't need me. They'll be smart. They'll know what everything." And the interesting thing is that they did dumber stuff than a lot of my less well-able students.
They don't have any common sense. They are just straight book sense. They have no common sense.
Yeah, a lot of them had never. Some of them told me, for example, that they had never had to read a book in high school, because what they did, their strategy to succeed, and it served them well in high school, was come to class, remain conscious, pay attention to what your teacher's saying, take good notes, memorize those notes, and then simply give them back.
Exactly.
So what they were doing was that they were just simply memorizing and then regurgitating the information back. Well, the interesting thing is, when you get into college, you're also going to have to actually read a textbook, because there's two teachers in your classroom. There's the one who's standing up and talking about giving you lectures, but then there is the author of your textbook. And college professors are going to hold you to both of those teachers.
Exactly.
And if you don't
and that
know
stuff is going to be on your syllabus as well.
That's right, exactly. So in that class, after my students did some really not very bright things, like some of them would show up and not know there was a test that day, or, for example, when they had to write a paper, and specifically on the syllabus it indicated that it was supposed to be word processed on 8.5 by 11 white paper, they'd bring in stuff that they'd scrawled on notebook paper and just torn out of their notebooks. And I thought, I said, you guys are smart. What's going on here? I mean, how come you're having such a hard time with just the basics of my class? And one girl raised her hand and said, well, the thing is that these things worked in high school, but all of a sudden we're realizing they don't work here.
And they don't have the skills to adapt.
No, it is. It's all about adapting. And so what I had them do
Well, hold on. Let's stop right there, because we're going to take our first break, and that's what we're going to talk about, the first thing you had them do. And we're going to talk about that when we get right back. So, guys, we're going to take a break, and our first song by Jared and Amber is Cornerstone.
Welcome back to Real Talk for Real Teens, hosted by Kim Creighton. To talk live on the air, call 347-539-5226.
All right, guys, we have Dr. A on, and he's talking about that all-important freshman transition in college, and that it is not like should be considered as a 13th grade. And you were about to give us, you were talking about a group of students that you had that were, excelling or had excelled in high school, and how they were struggling in that freshman year. And so you were about to start about what suggestions that you gave them.
Well, I'll tell you, rather than me giving them suggestions, because I was still a little bit puzzled as to why this was going on, why these bright students were doing some kind of dumb things. I had a little teachable moment for myself, and I gave them all a bunch of 3x5 cards, and I asked them to go home and think very carefully about how have their college classes been different from their high school classes, and how were their college professors different from their high school teachers. And they brought me back the cards the next week, and I took them home, and I remember I sat down at the dining room table and started to read them, and my jaw just dropped, because what I was reading was literally two different educational cultures, one of which they had adapted to in the last 12 or 13 years of their lives and had been very successful at, and then suddenly it's like they were being thrown into a different country. And so I did a little content analysis of those cards, and I came up with two basic categories of ways that they are basically telling me that they have had to change. And then there was 5 specific aspects of each one of those. And the first category was intellectual and academic changes. And then the second category was personal and behavioral changes that they had to make. So if you don't mind, you mind if I just kind of take you through those changes?
Oh, go right ahead, because I'm just taking notes, because this is exactly, go right ahead.
All right. So intellectual and academic changes. One of the very first things that they mentioned was the fact that they basically were passive learners in high school. I mean, they would go to a class, and the only person who would really be active would be the teacher, who was up lecturing, and, their job was to sit quietly and take notes and remember those notes, and then, like as I said before, and then give them back to the teacher on the test. And if they did that, they were just fine. But the thing is that they were now that they're in college, they had to actually actively engage in their education. They had to take responsibility for it. Their teachers, for example, didn't teach them everything that was in their textbooks, which is what is done on a high school level, so that students will be able to gain high scores on standardized tests. In college, what you find is that most professors feel that there actually is, and I think I've mentioned this before, but there's actually 2 teachers in the classroom. There's the person who has written the book, and then there is also the teacher who is going to supplement what's in the book and maybe talk about his research on a particular topic. But when it comes down to the tests, everything is fair game, both what's in the lectures and what's in the book. And I learned this the hard way myself, because the first test I had when I took in college was a history test. And I really wanted to give a good impression to the teacher, so I studied, I came to every single class, and I took really good notes, and I worked really hard on those notes, and even kind of anticipated some of the questions he was going to ask. And when I read the first test, half of the questions were perfectly easy to me. because I could almost hear the teacher talking and see what he'd written on the board. And the other questions, I mean, I had no idea where they came from. And after the test was over and I handed the test in, I asked the professor, Dr. Henderson, are you sure that all of these questions were from this material? And he looked at me kind of strangely, and he said, well, Mr. Appleby, yes, they were. And how about if you make an appointment, if you'd like to talk about the test, make an appointment with me in my office hours, and we'll go over it. Well, when we went over it, to make a long story short, I got all the questions right that he had lectured about, but I got all the questions wrong that came from the textbook because I didn't think I had to read the textbook because I thought he was going to teach everything that was important.
He's going to cover everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in that conversation, I mean, he looked me in the eye and he says, Mr. Appleby, I think you think you're still in high school, where I'm going to teach you everything in the book. And I said, well, I think maybe I've learned something very valuable from you. The next time I have to read the book. And he says, well, of course you have to read the book. Well, that's one of those situations where, I was like the tourist who went to England and didn't know that you're supposed to drive on the other side of the road. I crashed into that teacher, but I learned relatively quickly. So I learned that I was going to have to actually actively involve myself in learning and read and actually read the textbook. And that kind of leads us to number 2 under intellectual and academic changes, and that is, what does it mean to study? Once again, I think most students in high school think studying is taking in the information very well that teachers give them, and then being able to memorize it and give it back. But there's a real big difference between the high school and college classroom because of the inclusion of different material in the textbook. And what I've found is that a lot of students will tell me that they have read the assignment, but when I ask them what's in the assignment, can you write down a paragraph that would let's say summarize the chapter you read, they would have absolutely no idea. And I said, well, now you did read the assignment, right? And yes, they read it, but what that reading means is just kind of making sure that your eyes see all the words on the page, but not really necessarily comprehending what's on the page.
And that's a big one for me. And I tell them all the time, reading fluency is one thing. Reading comprehension is a totally different thing. And this is where they had here they had the Georgia High School graduation test, which they stopped doing. But people could understand when kids didn't pass the math and science. But what they weren't seeing, that they were failing miserably more than math and science in social studies. And this is the reason why. Your teacher could do absolutely nothing in social studies all year long because it really doesn't matter. Only thing that matters is when they put that test in front of you because all the information you have is right in front of you. And you only have 4 choices. If you can't infer, if you can't figure out what it is, that's why you fail that. And people couldn't figure out why they're failing social studies so miserably because it's about reading comprehension.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of students said that. I mean, you read an assignment so you can tell your parents you did. I read the assignment. It's kind of like the assignment is just something you do to get out of the way, rather than to actually learn something from it. And that's what we're expecting you to do in college. We're expecting you not just to do it so you could say you did it, but so you could actually be able to, let's say, explain to somebody else. Let's say one of your fellow students was sick and couldn't read his book, and ask you, could you give me a 5-minute summary of what's in that chapter before we go into class? And what I find is that most college students can't, freshmen can't do that. Because they have not, as you have said, they have not actually comprehended or understood what's in the book.
And not just be able to explain it, be able to take that knowledge that they supposedly have comprehend and use it in another situation. So given this, can you apply it to that? Oh, my God, that is foreign right there. Well,
I'll tell you, you are spot on this because that is number 3 in my intellectual and academic change list, okay? And that is the way that you are asked to think changes from high school to college. There are 6 different what I call critical thinking skills, and all colleges and universities in their mission statements have some sort of a statement that indicates we're teaching our students to be critical thinkers and lifelong learners. And in most cases, critical thinking skills are as follows. They are the ability to memorize, the ability to comprehend, the ability to apply, analyze, evaluate, and integrate. So memorizing obviously means you can simply remember a definition that's given to you in the book, word for word. And that's nice, and that's a good base, but everyone knows that just because you memorize something does not mean that you actually understand or comprehend it. Mm-hmm. If you comprehend it, you can explain it to somebody else in different words than you learned it yourself. And then just comprehending it is good, but what we would also like you to be able to do is to take what you comprehend and understand and use it to apply it to solve problems or use it in some sort of a different kind of a situation. And that's really that's what a job is all about. Mm-hmm. It's not just memorizing things, and it's not just understanding things. It's actually being able to do things with what it is that you have remembered and comprehended. And then, of course, we can jump up to things like analysis, which means to take apart a complex whole, into its individual pieces, and then evaluating, meaning do you think it's true or false? Is it propaganda or is it education? And then the last stage is to be able to integrate or take pieces of information that you didn't think were related before and put them together and create whole new things, like whole new theories and ideas and what have you.
Exactly. And that's I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to take our next break, because that's the difference between when I ask somebody how their writing is, and I ask them, did they do a research paper in high school? And they're like, yeah, we read this book, and we had to go and pull, stuff from the websites and da-da. That's not research. That is, I don't know what that is, but research is coming up with an original idea based on something else, or just original. That's what research is, and we've confused terms. If people are using different, that is not a research paper. To me, that is just a synopsis of the essay. Of the novel. It is not. And you've gone to different sources and picked out what they said about it. And you may have an opinion, but that's not research. Research is taking that novel and applying whatever concept and putting it to something else.
Mm-hmm. And actually, sometimes even creating something totally new.
Exactly. That's never existed before.
So
we're going to take our next break, and we'll get back to your next steps. I'm loving this conversation. So, guys, we're going to take our next break, and our next song by Jared and Amber is The Marriage.
You might think that I've been crying from these tired, crusty eyes as I plodded up the aisle like a lonely gypsy bride with a breadcrumb trail behind leading to the exit sign in a crooked kite flying. But I swear to God, I'm fine. Nothing and Pack your bag and come with me. You're my bride and baby, I'm your groom.
Welcome back to Real Talk for Real Teens, hosted by Kim Creighton. To talk live on the air, call 347-539-5226.
All right, we're back, and we're in this conversation, and Dr. A just went over the different aspects of critical thinking, and he was talking about how you're actually expected to think differently from high school than from college. And so let's jump right back in.
Well, the thinking differently is absolutely right, and one of the things that the critical thinking skills that I mentioned was evaluating. And when you evaluate something, you determine its correctness or incorrectness, and part of that kind of correctness or incorrectness can have to do with ethical decisions that you make. I mean, is this an ethical or non-ethical decision? And that leads nicely into the fourth academic change, and that is the ability to be able to understand and act in an academically honest fashion. And that often comes up with papers that students write. And you mentioned before the break that just simply going out and collecting a bunch of stuff and throwing it together from the internet, is not writing a research paper. All that is doing is just gathering other people's thoughts, and then if you're not careful, you may be giving a college professor the impression that you think those are your thoughts because you haven't cited them appropriately, or you haven't paraphrased them appropriately, and of course, anytime you take a person's words and use them in a paper, you should surround them with quotation marks and then give credit for that. So according to Smith and Jones in 1960, they said that Freudian psychoanalysis is the best form of psychotherapy. So you're giving them credit. If you don't use their words but still use their ideas, you have to paraphrase what their original ideas are and come up with a sentence that is made up of your own words, not just adding, for example, not just changing an and to an or switching things around a little bit. But what I find is my freshmen tell me, I mean, in my high school, teachers were happy if we just turned a written assignment in. And there wasn't a great deal of looking at it in terms of whether or not it was done in an academically honest fashion. And I think what students may not realize is that if they Googled something and found a source and then took information out of that and just plugged it into a paper, your college professor is quite capable of taking that sentence and putting it into Google and finding out exactly where it came from. And that's I've had lots of students who are just horrified at the idea that I thought they were being academically dishonest, when in actual fact they were. And when I asked them about it, they said that they had never been taught how to appropriately cite examples, or how they had not been taught to appropriately paraphrase information. So they have to be very, very, very careful about that, because students have been they've been dismissed from college for plagiarizing.
Exactly.
And no one wants that to happen. Well, all right, going down to number 5, the last intellectual and academic change has to do with following directions and understanding what is expected of you. What my students told me was that at the end of just about every high school class, their teachers would take 2 or 3 minutes and explain to them exactly what was expected of them in the next class.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to read chapter 2, because we'll have a quiz that will cover this and we'll cover that, and making absolutely sure that they know what to do in the next class. Well, in a college class, of course, college teachers know exactly what's going to be going on every day, but they write a syllabus, and they're very careful about writing their syllabus, because it gives all the dates of tests and deadlines of papers, and how you're going to be graded, and what to do if you're sick, and how to contact the professor. And they give it out on that first day, and it's the job description for the class. Mm-hmm. And we assume, of course, that students are going to read it and understand it, and if there's any sort of questions that they have, they'll ask us about it. But since very, very seldom do teachers hand out syllabi in high school, what we end up with is students who just think, well, this is just this piece of paper that they give us on the first day of class. And, I have students who've said they've thrown it away.
Yeah, they hand them out. They hand them out, but they're not outlined. They have a summary of, we will be doing unit 1 or something like that, or it's very general. And speaking to this whole following directions and knowing what's expected of you, I want to take it away from the academics for a minute, because this is also about just life lessons. When I had my classroom, the very first day, when either my homeroom or my class, and they thought I was being a pain, and I would say, this is my area, my desk, my garbage can, my chair. That's your area. You have everything you need over there, pencil sharpener, garbage can, everything. Do not come into my area unless I've invited you into my area. And it never fails that somebody will throw something in my garbage can. And I will look at them and say, you know what did you just do? They're like, oh, and they start laughing. I'm not laughing. You need to take that out of my garbage can and put it in your garbage can. And people think I'm being mean. No, what I'm doing is preparing you for the real world, because these were the instructions. You knew the expectation. If I don't follow through, because when you've done something, what have I taught you?
Yeah.
So I don't care what's in that garbage can. You need to dig in there and get whatever that is out of there, because it doesn't belong there. It belongs over there. And they don't have many opportunities or times when someone does that. And people think it's mean, but no, I'm preparing them for life.
Right. Well, that's why I said, a syllabus is like a job description.
Yes.
And if no one has taught someone how to follow and respect a set of rules, I really fear for them when they get into an employment situation where they're going to have to follow what their supervisors say. They're going to have to follow what the human resources say that you have to do, and that's, once again, that's all a part of just the growing up process of going from childhood to adulthood, and that it slaps them in the face sometimes if they have been treated like children. But it's not. I would be remiss if I allowed children to graduate from college and go into the workforce.
And that's what I felt. That's exactly how I felt. My students would say, oh, my God, you're crazy, you're mean, blah, blah, blah. But then they were like, but I get it. They were like, I get it. And I was like, yeah. And they would have this situation, they'd come back and say, oh, my God, I see what you're talking about. Yes,
right.
Because in their efforts, and it's your parents, too, because I really believe this whole transition to adulthood should start incrementally, developmentally, starting in 6th grade. I'll give you K, birth through 5th. After that, we need to be focusing little by little practicing skills, developing skills that are helping you so that when you're not 18, you're not like, and now the world's expecting something of you and you don't know what that is. That's
right. That's right. Yeah, we would not be doing our job if we did not prepare people for life. And life includes being able to operate in harmony with authority figures. And like bosses and teachers and parents and whoever. It would be a little bit like, how terrible would it be if the Army did not have basic training and all they did was march people into combat? Who would survive? Well, it's as it turns out, of course, 33% of our freshmen don't survive.
Exactly.
And don't make it to their sophomore year. So somewhere along the line, the boot camp of high school instruction is not working for fully a third of the people who go off to college.
Well, I can tell you the boot camp of high school is not to prepare them. Unless they change something, it's not preparing them for college. It is to get out of high school. It is to graduate. Yeah. It is to get those graduation numbers up. Anything beyond that, I believe they are not telling the truth if they think it's preparing young people for anything beyond getting out of high school.
Yeah, and that's a really scary thought for those of us who welcome them to college, thinking they're ready, and then realizing that here are I keep saying this over and over again, but here are really bright, really motivated, really nice students who are just failing, and what they're thinking is they've been betrayed in some way, shape, or form, and they're thinking that they're being betrayed at the college level, and I actually think maybe they've been betrayed a lot earlier because. Don't you think it would be a good idea for each step of education to be preparing students for the next step?
And that's why it needs to be more intentional. It can't be again that active and passive. It can't be passive. It has to be an intentional process of moving them through. Developmentally, I know that a 6th grader can't do the same thing that an 11th grader does, but I can start moving them towards that way.
Exactly. Yeah, education is a process. Actually, the word education comes from the Latin word educere, and the ducere part of that means to lead. It's like dukes and duchesses are leaders, and the prefix means out of. And so to educate someone means to lead them out of one place to another, hopefully in a successful manner. It doesn't just simply mean kick them out of the nest and then hope they survive in the next stage. We're supposed to be leaders, and sometimes I think students are being more just pushed rather than led.
Yes,
and
I agree.
They just get pushed. They get pushed off the cliff of high school. They graduate, and then all of a sudden it's that terrible falling feeling when you get to college.
And because they don't know any better, they go gladly because, oh, my God, who's not looking for 18? Who's not looking forward to 18? So they go gladly, but they go because they're out of their own ignorance, and which means not to know or what the process is. We're going to take this next break, and then when we come back, we want to finish up with the behaviors because we'll be pertinent out of time. So
good enough. I'll speed up a little bit.
But I'm having a great time. I'm loving this conversation. So we're going to come back, and we're going to our next song by Amber. Jared and Amber is Fire and Brimstone.
I'm gonna head down to the river. I'm gonna float it out to sea. I'm gonna find myself the biggest fish and hope he swallows me. 'Cause I'll find some peace and quiet in the belly of that well, where I can think about the love we made, how I gave you hell, and the silence unsafe from fire and brimstone. I'm gonna head down to the desert with a serpent in my hand. I'm gonna walk straight through an ocean, right on past my promised land. 'Cause I'll find some peace and quiet where the birds and I can find my own way honestly by listening to my lovers. Just as long as I could say one thing and turn into another. I'm gonna brag about my vision. I'm gonna shove them down your throat. I'm gonna piss off all my brothers till they steal my colored code. 'Cause I'll find some peace and quiet at the bottom of the well, where I can think about the love we made and how I gave you hell. And besides, I'm safe from fire and brimstone there. 'Cause what I need is jelly voices speaking when I leave. I just don't want every burning bush to give me good directions. I can find honestly by listening to mine. Just as long as I can say one thing and turn into another.
All right, guys, we're back for that last bit of the show. So we're going to jump right into it, Dr. A. The
Alrighty.
personal and behavioral changes.
Right. We've talked about intellectual changes like learning and studying and thinking and following directions, and now we're going to talk about some of those ways in which they actually have to change the way that they act. And the very first thing that my students told me was they're having a really, really difficult time managing their daily lives because they didn't live with their parents anymore. I mean, most of my students lived in dormitories. So things like managing your time and your stress and your diet and your sleep and even your health and your money and managing your, let's call them high-risk behaviors. There's a lot of things that there's a lot of temptations in college that maybe aren't there in high school, and it's a really good idea for someone who's heading toward college to be able to talk to let's say a trusted adult about what it's like to be in college. Mm-hmm. And that's where first generation college students have a really tough time, because there may be no one in their family who has either maybe graduated or perhaps even attended college. Mm-hmm. And it's just like I said, it's a whole new, it's like going to a different planet.
I lost my mind. I lost my mind when I went, because I graduated from a class of 87 people in high school and went to Southern Illinois University, which is over 10,000 people. I lost my mind. I mean, I literally lost my mind. I had no management of daily life. And it really, it was, and I literally, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I didn't go to class. I didn't eat. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's and the thing is that there are, even if you are unprepared, there are now let's say interventions that colleges have put into effect. I mean, there are orientations, there are whole freshman year experience courses like the one I told you I talked about. They have health clinics, and what students sometimes think is like, who wants to walk around campus again? Well, it's a good idea to know where your classes are, or you may be on time, but you may be in the wrong room. And if you get sick, what are you going to do? You may not, if your mother has always been the person who has made your doctor's appointments for you, she's not there. I had a student once who missed a test. It was a test that I think it was an 11 o'clock class, and I asked him why, and he says, I overslept. And I thought, well, now, that's interesting. You overslept for an 11 o'clock class. And he says, well, it wasn't my fault. My roommate didn't wake me up. Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is that, being an adult means learning how to wake yourself up and manage your time so that you can go to work appropriately or you can get to class appropriately. But so managing that whole busy life is one of the things that you're going to have to do to make some changes in if you want to adapt to college. Second, under personal and behavioral change, and this is a really interesting one, is explaining your successes and your failures. And what I mean by that is not blaming other people when things go wrong, taking responsibility for your own failures and learning from your mistakes.
Personal responsibility, man.
Personal responsibility. You have to act like a responsible adult. And college professors really don't like dumb excuses. Your grandmother, died for the third time this month, and it's just that does not work well with college professors.
And it also goes to, and I tell them all the time, that's a good reason, but no one cares. That's just the bottom line. If something, you might have a great explanation for why A and B happen, but no one cares in the real world, because if your project needs to be done, it needs to be done, and maybe your part is contingent, somebody else's part is contingent on something you're doing, so no one cares about all that. Yeah,
you work through it, and you're supposed to, that's part of being a good employee, and it's also that's where you kind of learn about being a good employee, is by learning how to be a good responsible student when you're in college. And that's some of that, I guess, can be taught in schools, and maybe a little bit of that should be helped out by good parenting too at the same time.
Yeah,
preparing. And making sure that you don't, I hear all sorts of, really kind of horror stories about parents, going to schools and arguing about students' grades with their teachers.
Oh, it happens you have parents who will not come to a parent-teacher conference, but let their kid get a bad grade, or let somebody even take their cell phone from them because they're being disruptive in class, and they come down and fight every little battle. And that is, what lesson are you teaching them? What lesson? Because their supervisor, manager, their college professor, the police officer will shut you up. You don't matter. That's right.
Yeah. So some of these things, maybe we should be talking about explaining to parents and high schools that both of you should be working together to be able to create people who are ready to adapt to that real world, which is what college is all about, and that means letting them sometimes benefit from the unpleasant consequences of their less than intelligent behavior, because you got to learn somehow.
And that's the project I'm working on right now with College 2.0. It's about let high school be that place where they can practice safely some of those skills they need, because at least you're there to pick them up when they fall. But let them fall. Let them fall.
Yep. You got to skin your knee.
And it's your responsibility as a parent to prepare them for. I think the whole thing is people are seeing childhood all the way to 18. They're not seeing adolescence as preparation for adulthood.
That's a good point. A very good point. Well, all right. Let's scoot on by here. We've got managing your daily life, explaining your successes and failures, and then behaving in class. I've been in a lot of high school classrooms talking to students about the things I'm talking about today, and I'm kind of appalled at how informal high school classes are all about. And what I've found is that my students will tell me is that you're okay in high school as long as you don't act bad, as long as you're not acting up and actually specifically disrupting the classroom. In college, sometimes your behavior is judged to be not so good if it isn't good behavior, if you're not participating actively in class, if you're doing something like sleeping. I mean, in one of the high school classes that I went to, there were two students who slept the whole class, and the teacher didn't bother to wake them up. And I asked at the end, and they said that this class is a lot better with that student sleeping than being awake. Which is really, really unfortunate. But things like texting in class, or taking, sometimes my students will take notes on laptop computers, and every once in a while, when I'm walking around the classroom, I begin to realize that some of them are not taking notes. They're surfing the web, and they're shopping, and they're visiting sites that they shouldn't be visiting. And a college professor, I think, really kind of thinks that he or she is wasting their time if students are not there to actually pay attention and learn the material that's being taught. So behaving in, let's just say that a college classroom, it's not formal in that you have to wear a coat and tie if you're a student, but it's a little bit more formal in terms of the way that you're supposed to interact with your professor and your fellow students. So that's another thing. Another very important thing, this is number 4, is doing your homework. And what I've heard from an awful lot of my freshmen is that if you're a pretty smart cookie, you can get all of your homework, schoolwork done when you are in school. Because you have study halls, and sometimes teachers, let you do work in class. And of course you're in class for maybe somewhere between 34, 36 hours, and then when you go to college, what a lot of students are just overjoyed by is that they only sign up for like 15 hours, and they're only in class for 15 hours. But the thing is that homework really is homework. I mean, it's what you do after class, and a full-time load is 15 hours. And what I tell students is that's like a full-time load is like a full-time job, because you really should be studying about 3 hours for every hour you're in class. So that means for the 15 hours that you're in class, you really should have a total of about 40 hours altogether in school, and that's why a full-time load is like a full-time job.
Yeah.
But it's not something that you can just simply get during class. You actually have to do stuff outside of class.
And that doesn't when you have lab classes. But go ahead.
Oh, especially.
Yeah, go ahead.
Lab classes especially, because in most cases for lab classes, I mean, you may be in lab for only about 3 hours, but you're only getting like 1 hour's worth of academic credit. Everything gets, everything, time is at such a premium in college that you just, it just used to blow my mind when I would go between classes and I would see students in the student union watching soap operas. And sometimes when it would be one of my students, I would stop and I would say, well, goodness, don't you have anything better to do? And the answer is, well, I don't have class for, until 3 o'clock, which is 2 hours away. And I'm thinking, well, my goodness, don't you have homework to do? Well, yeah, maybe I'll do that tonight. Well, by the end of the day, they're not prepared to be able to put in 6 hours straight through. It just won't work. And then learning how to actually do work around official periods of work is something that a lot of students just have no conception of. Well, last but not least, in terms of personal changes, is the fact that college is a wonderful place to plan for your future. It's not something that you just want to get out of the way and graduate, because the job market is too competitive to go out and just simply say, I have a Bachelor of Arts degree, hire me, because the other 99 people who are applying for that job also have a bachelor's degree.
Exactly.
And what you have to do is you have to really use your undergraduate education to be able to determine what it is that you would like to do when you grow up, and then use every ounce of academic and extracurricular opportunities you have in college to create yourself in the image of that person that you want to become. And when students realize that they begin to realize that the classes that they're taking have real relevance to what they want to do. I mean, you may not want to be a writer, for example. You may not write for a living like Stephen King does, but everybody has to write in their job. Everybody has to speak in their job. So English composition classes and speech classes that many students say, oh, I'm going to take speech to get it out of the way this semester. It just drives me crazy, because why not take speech in order to be able to increase those kinds of communication skills that you're going to have just to get a job in your interview, let alone actually talk with the customers or the students who you're going to be teaching or whatever. And I've got 3 kind of quick little philosophical and dramatic sound bites that I give my students to help them to understand that process. And the first one comes from Socrates. I think it actually came from the oracle at Delphi, but Socrates spoke it, and he said, "Know thyself." And what that means to me, and I think what it also meant to Socrates, was you should know your strengths, you should know your weaknesses, you should know your values, and you should know your goals. Okay, and then the next little piece of advice comes from Shakespeare, who wrote Hamlet, and in Hamlet, Polonius tells Laertes, "Above all else, to thine own self be true." And doesn't it kind of make sense that in order to be true to yourself, you have to know yourself, like Socrates said? And what being true to yourself means is you now have to create a plan so that you can, capitalize on your strengths and strengthen your weaknesses and really investigate what your personal values are, and then create a plan in order to be able to, become what it is that you want to become. And then my last little soundbite comes from the Greek goddess of victory, spoken through her 21st century commercial counterpart, and of course the Greek goddess of victory is Nike, who says, "Just do it," right? And that means, know yourself, know who you are, have a plan for yourself to create what you yourself in the image of what you want to become, but then for goodness sakes, actually do that plan. Because I'm absolutely positive that you have dealt with many students who are wonderful dreamers, and they have such wonderful dreams in their head, but they simply never get around to actually doing them. You got to take that first step.
And they don't even know how. And one of them is that dream of going to college. And then when I ask them questions about the process and what they've done absolutely nothing. And I can be really rude. And I'm like, so how are you going to get in? You're sleeping with the admissions counselor? Because I don't see how you're going to get in that place. You haven't taken any tests. You haven't turned in any applications. You haven't done anything. Oh, but Ms. Creighton, I'm getting in. Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah.
Go right ahead.
Yeah. I often told students that there's a series of kind of steps toward actually getting what you want, and the first is maybe you have a delusion of what you want. I'd like to be a CEO of a major organization, but you have absolutely no idea of what that means or how to get there. And then you might have kind of a dream, which means you're a little teeny bit clearer, but you still don't have a plan. And then having a plan is nice, but do you really have a strategy where you've broken down your plan into manageable steps? And then, the last thing is that strategy, and that's really what you and I are both talking about, and that is, how are you going to get there? And if you don't know all those steps, let me help you with that. That's what a mentor is, and that's another. I think that's kind of the last thing I might want to leave you and your listening audience with tonight, and that is, when you get to college, make absolutely sure that you are looking out for someone. It could be a faculty member, it could be a staff member, but someone who can act as a mentor for you to help you to plan out those steps toward what it is that you want to become. If you want to become a psychologist, then it's probably a good idea to major in psychology, and I would think that a good mentor would be one of your psychology professors. She's been to graduate school. She knows those kind of steps. Cultivate at least one person who can help you to become who you want to be, because if you don't have a goal, college is a terrible place. It's a place where people are telling you to do things you don't want to do, and they don't make any sense to you. But and that really kind of happened to me. When I went to college, I thought I wanted to be a dentist, and I guess I must have been kind of a slow learner, because about halfway through my college career, I realized that my grades were bad in the classes I had to take, and I didn't like them. And so I thought to myself, well, goodness, if I don't like the things that dental students like, and I'm not good at the things that dental students do, maybe I'm not going to be a dentist. It's like, whoa, it's a big insight on my part.
Yeah, I changed my major 5 times. I mean, it is what it is, because I was not prepared. So I want to say, go ahead.
Well, I took a psychology class after I decided not to be a pre-dental student anymore, and I took it just simply because it was required.
Yeah.
And it was like a total revelation to me. I mean, I was suddenly in a class in which I not only enjoyed what I was doing, but I was good at it. And my students are always amazed at this story, but I didn't earn an A in college until after my sophomore year when I took my first psychology class. And from then on out, I earned almost all A's in college. And it was not because I got any smarter. It was because I discovered what my passion was.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the big job in college. You got to discover your passion, and then all of a sudden, it's not work anymore. It's joy. It's fun to write papers because you're learning things about things that you want to learn.
You're writing things about things you're interested in.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. A. This has been great. We went a little over. I don't care because I really wanted this information out. So I want to thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to take a little bit more time than I deserved.
No, you deserved it. So
okay.
We'll say goodbye to you. And, guys, we'll end with the last song by Jared and Amber. It is Taxidermist.
Follow us on Facebook at Real Talk for Real Teens and on Twitter at RTFRT Radio.
This is hell without you here. I'll suffer under color of all the windows that I've shuttered, doors that I've locked from the inside. But I feel safest in the prison.
music artists, we need you for the show. If you'd like your own mini concert, please send a request for information to realtalkforrealteens@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and please join us each and every Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern for more Real Talk for Real Teens.